Hi, my name is Deborah Peart, and I am the founder and CEO of My Mathematical Mind. I'm super excited to invite you to share with me as we discuss the power of a positive mathematical identity. So let's jump in. I would imagine that since you are here attending a math summit virtually, that you likely are someone who might say that you love math. I'm one of those people too. But what I want you to think about is why is that? When there are so many people who absolutely despise mathematics, what is it that brought us into a space that we can say we love math? Who were the people? What were the experiences? And why is it that we are probably people who have a positive math identity? Because I would guess that most people do not have the same relationship with mathematics that we do. They might be fearful in the face of mathematical tasks, at the mere mention of doing math or being involved in mathematics, splitting a check at a restaurant, figuring out the tip. So many people are anxious about engaging with mathematics. That is exactly why we are having this conversation about math identity and why it's important to have a positive one. If we think about math identity on a continuum, going in the negative direction or the positive direction, depending on what day it is, we might find ourselves anywhere along this continuum. Maybe at the mention of adding a few numbers together, we're feeling mighty positive. But at the mention of, say, fractions, we slide a little bit in the negative direction. It is important to recognize that we all have an identity. Some days it is feeling mighty negative, while others it might feel positive. The thing that we should be concerned about is that too many students and teachers and parents are hanging out in that negative math identity zone, and we can do something about it. So, what does it even mean to have a positive mathematical identity? Well, this definition is taken from The Impact of Identity in K-8, Mathematics Rethinking Equity-Based Practices, that was put out by NCTM in 2013. The dispositions and deeply held beliefs that students develop about their ability to participate and perform effectively in mathematical contexts and to use mathematics in powerful ways across the context of their lives. I want to emphasize that we need to think about the fact that mathematics is supposed to go with us into the contexts of our lives, and that the beliefs that we hold about ourselves really impact how we engage and whether or not we love or don't love mathematics. What are some things that you would imagine can hinder the development of a healthy math identity? Here are a few things for you to consider. First and foremost, we are mostly familiar with math anxiety. It's one of the subjects that gets to have a classification of anxiety all to itself. We have general anxiety, maybe even academic anxiety, but mathematics causes more anxiety than any other subject. That is one of the things that can hinder the development of a positive math identity. Feeling shame. Math shame is a thing that is projected onto us, but it's also something that we can adopt for ourselves. When we feel guilty about something, it's usually because we did something in a certain way, or we're sorry we said something. We feel guilty for our actions. But when we feel shame, we feel as if something is wrong with us. We feel as if we are not good enough for math, or math is too challenging for us. And that is why we often have people saying things like, I'm not really a math person. When's the last time you heard someone say, I'm not really a reading person? I don't really do words. That would be something you generally would not hear someone say, yet we often hear people saying it about mathematics. Lastly, One of the biggest hindrances for developing a positive math identity is a narrative that is written for you that wasn't written by you. What do I mean by that? Who's good at math? Should I be good at math? Should a girl be good at math? Should a person of color be good at math? Who's writing the narrative that is telling our students that math is not for them and that they are not for math? What does everyone say about the group to which I belong? Do they say that people who look like me are destined for greatness in the STEM field? Do they say that I was born to do math? Do they encourage students who look like me to believe that they come with brilliance that has prepared them to be excellent in the field of mathematics? Who wrote the story? And how can we change it? Well, I can tell you, in fourth grade, I had a pivotal math moment. My first bully ever, my fourth grade teacher. When I asked questions in math class, she told me to stop asking so many questions and just follow the steps. In other words, I wasn't allowed to be curious in math class, so I rejected mathematics as a part of my identity. I did well, but I leaned into all things language arts because in those classes, I could ask all the questions I wanted, and my curiosity and creativity was celebrated. But what I know now is that I was born a mather. I had everything I needed to be successful in mathematics, and great mathers and mathematicians ask lots of questions. So I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. And I realize now the questions that I was asking, maybe Miss Bernstein didn't know the answer to. Again, positive math identity impacts how students learn, whether we're talking about the teacher or the student. With all of this, something that I believe strongly, our relationship with mathematics and how people feel about it, math is not the problem. What we think is real math, that's the problem. Who we believe deserves access to high level mathematics, also a problem. And the very landscape of STEM and math field positions, problem. Who's invited into those spaces? Big part of the problem. You know what else is a problem? The legacy we've inherited. Historically, mathematics was reserved for the elite class. Education in colonial America focused on literacy skills and preparing the college bound by studying classic literature. Mathematics was reserved for privileged boys ages 12 and over because math was a very challenging subject. In the common schools, math was reduced to basic computation skills taught using the rule method. And what is the rule method? It may sound familiar. The rule for a problem was introduced. The students memorized the rule, and then they practiced using the rule. Oh, and one more very important thing. Girls were not taught the rules because some people believed that girls and women were too delicate to learn mathematics. Hmm. Mathematics has been stolen from generations of learners. Some were ushered off the highway before they had the opportunity to reach their destination of math mastery, while others took an exit not realizing there was no return access. This is the legacy that we've inherited, but it doesn't have to stay this way. One thing we must do is we need to make sure that everyone realizes math is not optional. We do not count down the days until the end of the last reading class we need to take so that we can never read again. We also don't choose a major in college based on never wanting to write again. Yet mathematics is something that we often give people permission to opt out of. And that's something that must change. And that is directly connected to having a positive math identity and being invested in math learning. Here's an example. Reading. Reading is promoted as something that we need to be successful in life. It's something we need to function in society. And as a result, when learning to read is challenging, we persist. We persist because we know we need reading to achieve our goals in life. Readers read. They read fiction for pleasure and go on adventures and read any book that they love. But they also read to get information. We read nonfiction. We read all different genres of literature by choice. And maybe we don't read that much at all. But at the end of the day, we are all readers, and readers read. The same is true for writing. Even when young children are really just scribbling, we encourage them to keep writing because we know that you need writing as a form of communication. And writers write. They write stories using their imagination. They share their ideas with audiences. They write lists. They write in journals. They write text messages and emails. At the end of the day, we are all writers. We may never become journalists, but we are writers, and writers write. And then there's math. Yeah, the chore you do or the thing that's done to you. Math class is often the place where curiosity and sense making are discouraged. Just follow the steps and eventually you'll get there. What? Somewhere along life's journey, we got the message loud and clear that if you don't have the imaginary math gene, then you're not a math person. Math is not for everyone. You have to be really smart to do it. You have to be really quick with your facts. And if at any point you struggle or ask too many questions, then you are definitely not a math person. That's what the voices of the self appointed gatekeepers of mathematics have been telling us. But I'm here to tell you it is not true. So, how do we fix this? Where do we go from here? What can we do to foster the development of positive math identities in our students and, dare I say, our peers, family members, community members? But let's start with the students. First and foremost, we can change our language. We can change how we talk about mathematics, but also there's some other language I want you to consider changing. Also, we can honor all the gifts that students come with to us. We are all born with math intuition. Students come with their own version of brilliance, and we need to tap into that and honor what they bring in their funds of knowledge, what they bring through their experiences, and we need to celebrate all different ways of thinking and being. We need to make sure that as we establish our classroom communities and our math communities, that we foster a sense of belonging, a place where everyone knows that they belong and deserve to be there. And we have to find ways for everyone to start experiencing a little math joy. Math can be very beautiful. It can even be playful. But somewhere along the line, we got the idea that everything but math can be fun. Well, that stops today. But let's start with changing our language. So, right now, the three core academic skills are reading, writing, and arithmetic, also known as the three R's. Very interesting. But I propose that we switch it up and we redefine our core academic skills, maybe as reading, writing, and reasoning, except reasoning is actually needed across all content areas. So, okay, perhaps we abandon this notion that we need to have three R's, particularly since we never actually had three R's. Maybe we could redefine the three core academic skills to be reading, writing, and mathing, because math deserves a verb. And if readers read and writers write, it only makes sense that mathers math. So if we rebrand mathematics and introduce the term mather, which simply means a person who uses mathematics to make sense of the world. That way, we help people see that math is for everyone, and math is something that you never stop doing. You don't get to opt out because we need to solve problems in our lives every day using mathematics. Mathers math. They think creatively and they share ideas with one another when we create opportunities for discourse and when we are creative in our instruction. We want to create a community of mathers who are growing and learning to be confident in their abilities. We want students to understand that they are already mathing in simple things like sharing snack, playing outside with friends, cooking, baking, doing art projects, dancing, participating in sports. My goodness, we are always mathing, and they need to know that. In our classroom settings, in our buildings, in our school communities, we want to establish safety. We want to establish a community where it is safe to share your ideas, even if they are different from those of your peers. We want to celebrate and honor different ways of thinking and multiple paths to get to the same solution. Is it safe to make mistakes in your community? Are mistakes held up as learning opportunities? Is it safe to be yourself and show up as your authentic self? Is it safe to struggle publicly, knowing that at the other side of productive struggle, there is learning, there is thinking, there is understanding? Are we celebrating that it is safe to do it your way and get to the solution in a different way? Or do we look for that one way that aligns with what we would do? Are we providing a space where there's equity of voice? It is equally important for the student who has the opportunity to share and the students who are watching to see who is sharing their ideas in order to demonstrate that we are in a community of experts. The teacher is not the knower and keeper of all knowledge, that we are sharing that knowledge collectively and that we are learning together. Are we building communities where there is an open invitation into the mathematics and all students know that they belong there? Are we establishing routines that allow us to open a math class with low stakes and many opportunities for students to share their ideas? Are we encouraging math discourse all throughout math class, providing students with independent think time, opportunities to discuss with a partner, work in a small group, share whole group, critique the reasoning of others, and justify one's own reasoning? Are we creating those opportunities for students to work together to solve problems? In my classroom, we had many, many affirmations, and we engaged in positive self talk. One of the things that we often said is, I have the right to be here, and I was born to do math. And eventually, the students internalized that and they asked for what they needed. We honored processing speeds of other classmates because we talked about how it's necessary to do that. We didn't wave hands in the air when we knew the answer. We waited with our hand low to honor thinking time and processing time and to be respectful. And we also talked about what we call sloth mode, where we acknowledged that being slow didn't mean that you weren't thinking deeply. Are we establishing a community where children experience joy? Math joy is a part of learning together. Students need to see their teachers enjoying the mathematics that they're teaching. I'm reminded of introducing story time with light in my eyes and so excited. Oh, it's reading time, and our story today is going to be so great. And then switching to math and saying, please turn to page 27 in your textbook. Where is the joy in that? We need to make sure that students recognize we are learning together. I often ask students to share their ideas so that I could understand what's happening in their beautiful brains. I wanted them to know that I was learning from them just as they were learning from me. We have to provide opportunities for students to collaborate so that they recognize that working together with a group is not cheating, first of all, but also that there is a greater wealth of knowledge when we share our ideas. Students become really excited when they realize that they can rely on their peers as much as, and maybe even more than, the teacher. We need to decenter ourselves so that students can actually be the ones doing the thinking. We need to help students understand that math is not scary. We need to help some adults realize that math is not scary, to be quite honest. And one of the ways we do that is to be playful with mathematics. We can have math classrooms where students are enjoying themselves and we are having a good time without chaos. But sometimes, to people who come into your space, they might see chaos, but you need to help them understand that what they're seeing is math joy. Because mathematics is not only a subject to be taught, but an experience to be had. And now, bringing it all the way back to where we started. Why does it matter to have a positive math identity? Where is the power in having a positive math identity? Well, first and foremost, teachers' math identity must be a positive one in order to successfully nurture positive math identities in students. And if you don't believe me, you can check the research. There is a direct correlation between highly math anxious teachers teaching students and math achievement and the increase in math anxiety in students. So, if we have teachers who are in classrooms who don't feel prepared to teach mathematics or who are still holding on to their own math trauma, math anxiety, math shame, math avoidance, what do we do? How do we fix this? I believe that the NAEP scores being low, that students struggling in math class, that the scores in fourth and eighth grade reflect the work that needs to be done in the foundational years. I'm not putting blame anywhere. What I'm saying is a part of the solution is we need to support our teachers with teaching mathematics. And teachers need time and space to learn, not as one more thing, but as a part of honing their craft. They need the support and resources, just as we get for other content areas, so that we can learn deeply, so that we can continue to improve our instruction, and so that we can teach confidently. Teachers need the space to lean into their discomfort. They need that same community that we were talking about for students. We need that for teachers. A community where it is safe to not know, to ask questions, to make mistakes, to lean on your colleagues, to share your ideas and learn from your mistakes. But that requires leaning in to discomfort. And we also need to let go. It is really hard to step off to the side and coach from the sidelines when we're talking about math. Doesn't it require direct instruction at all times? Don't I need to tell them everything they need to know? The answer to that is absolutely not. The person who is doing the thinking is the person who's doing the learning, to quote Peter Liljedahl. We want students to experience productive struggle, making sure it's productive and not just struggle. But we need to model, we need to experience a little productive struggle of our own. And a part of that will be letting go. So What can this look like? The framework that we use, comfort before confidence, has to do with helping teachers experience comfort working with mathematics, playing with mathematics, exploring mathematical ideas in a safe, non evaluative space. If we can help teachers to nurture positive math identities in themselves, whether it's with the support of leaders and coaches and peers, that is critical to moving the work forward in mathematics. It is urgent that we help teachers, especially those who are responsible for foundational math learning, to feel comfortable not only with the content, but also with engaging in math tasks in general. Our attitudes, our mindsets, our beliefs play a big part in whether or not we are comfortable with doing math, learning math, teaching math. So that's where we must begin. Once teachers begin to feel comfortable after having some time to play around with mathematics, then we can talk about digging into content and pedagogy. It's difficult to dig into content and pedagogy when you're still harboring feelings of fear and anxiety, or when you're still walking out the narrative that math is not for you and you are not for math. It begins with rewriting those math stories, even as adults. And once we have the opportunity to dig into content and pedagogy, from there, we can watch as teachers begin to grow in their confidence in their ability to teach mathematics. Once we establish confidence, then we are on to shifting the culture around mathematics. People who feel confident in their abilities are more than willing to collaborate. But it is challenging to collaborate when you live in fear that you will be exposed and, even worse, judged for what you don't know. As we move into the space of collaboration, then we can work together to build community, not just within our classroom, but within our buildings and beyond, because we want families to be brought in. We also know from research that math anxious parents helping their children with math homework can also interfere with math learning. It sounds to me that we really need to focus some energy on helping the adults heal so the adults can learn, so the adults can lead the way. Building a math culture and community that is focused on preparing all students for college, career, and beyond is critical. And it is grounded in the idea that we not only need math to pass a test, but we also need math to be successful and function in society. Maybe if we had a community of mathers, they would eventually stand confidently in front of high level mathematics, knowing that they might make mistakes and they might even fail, but being willing to persevere. That comes from watching it modeled by the adults in their lives. I want you to imagine a world where students knew and believed that mathematics could be a part of their identities, no matter their test scores, no matter the path in life they chose, that no matter the career they want to enter into, that mathematics has a place supporting them, and that math can be a part of their identity they never have to lose, regardless of their test scores or the paths in life they choose. Imagine a world where all students leave our care ready for college, career, and beyond. Imagine a place where we have positive math identities and project that love for mathematics onto everyone who comes in contact with us. I hope that you stand in agreement with me as I say the power in having a positive math identity can be a part of the solution for improving mathematics teaching and learning. Thank you so much. I hope that you will keep in touch.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed your time with that session and information. My name is Deborah Peart, as you know, and I see April is excited. I too am excited to spend time with you in Iowa, talking about what it means to be a community of mathers. And I am here. We only have a little bit of time, but anyone who's still in the room, if you have questions and you drop them in the chat or the Q&A, I'm happy to respond. I do have one here that's specifically about students and creating the opportunity for them to share. And when we typically have kept students from sharing openly or creating spaces for them to feel comfortable asking questions or failing, and that question is, what do you do or what do you recommend when students are embarrassed after sharing incorrect responses? So, if we think about the idea of building a community of mathers, a part of that is creating a culture where making mistakes, whether it is in your small group, on your own, or even in a public setting, that there's no shame in that and that we can all learn from the mistakes that we're making. And even with third graders, second graders in the classroom, they learn to actually check their work. We often say, make sure you check your work, but we don't teach students how to check their work. And it is when you make those mistakes and you teach them how to go find your mistakes, maybe use a different strategy to solve the same problem and see if you get the same answer. And if your answers don't match, which one of those strategies do you feel more confident with? So, what I would say to that is it really just has to do with the culture that you establish in the beginning and continue to encourage all year long with guiding students to respect the ideas of one another and to feel comfortable sharing, even if you have some partial conceptions about the mathematical ideas. All right, I'm checking here. Okay, when students have creative solutions, how do we make sure others don't get confused by it? Um, that's a great one because I personally was nervous about that, but I realized I was nervous about it because some of those creative solutions didn't make sense to me. And as the teacher in the room, as the adult in the room, I was concerned that if I didn't understand it, students would, of course, be confused by it. But what I learned is, first of all, I can learn from the students and they're okay with it. I don't have to be the holder and keeper of the knowledge and know everything. So it was very encouraging when students had creative solutions and I could say to them, can you help me understand what's happening in that beautiful brain? Can you walk me through your thinking? And then after they share and I start to make connections, I could say, oh, I like that. Can I borrow that? I may have to borrow that and help their classmates understand as well. Another thing is partnering students worked really well. And I'd have students, one student had to share the other student's thinking and vice versa. So, what came out of that is students having to articulate their understanding of their own thinking, but then also make connections with a partner. Thank you so much. Awesome, awesome. I will be back in North Carolina as well, Walanda, and I'm also going to be at NCTM. Thank you so much. You're intrigued by productive struggle, characteristics, teachers' role in that struggle. Oh, I'd love to. That's one of my favorite things to talk about because with productive struggle, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work around the learning pit and students needing to go through the pit and come out on the other side. I just recently wrote a blog post for Illustrative Mathematics that's talking about the joy that can be found in productive struggle, because on the other side is victory. So if you are rescued out of that struggle, then you don't necessarily own the new learning. So having scaffolds that are not giving it away, having questions at the ready to ask to move a student's thinking forward, asking a student to explain how they got their answer, whether it's right or wrong, so that you establish a culture where it's normal for the teacher to say, how do you know that? Tell me more about that. I'm not sure what you did there. Can you help me understand? Okay, well, have you thought about this? Being able to push a student to find their way out of that learning pit on their own, stepping away and giving them the space to kind of struggle productively, that is where the cognitive demand stays with the student, and they are the ones who are doing the learning. Too often we rescue or we provide scaffolds just in case. I know everyone's saying it, just in case, not just in time. But those just in time scaffolds are not always in the moment. I just had this brilliant idea that I'm going to give you to support you. It requires us to do the work of the lesson, to work through some of the tasks so that we can anticipate those sticky places. So we don't offer all of the scaffolds in advance, which would remove the cognitive demand. But instead, in the moment, I can look and see, I'm going to ask this question because I see this example where that I worked out, or that I worked with a colleague in our PLC, and we thought about what we've seen over the years. Where do students get stuck? How can I help them get unstuck without just reaching into the pit and snatching them out? So Sarah, thank you for asking that question. And the work around productive struggle, we want to just make sure that it is not so challenging that it is frustrating, excuse me, and leads to tears, but that it is just beyond that place where the student automatically gets it, that zone of proximal development where they need to work a little bit and they can connect their ideas, their strategies with those of other students. Anyone else have any other questions? We only have about 2 more minutes, but I think I can squeeze one more in still. All right, mathing makes me happy. I love that. So, the message around building a community of mathers rather than just using the term mathematicians, I've found that students sometimes feel it's a lot of pressure to be considered a mathematician. There's a lot riding on that title, but being a mathematician is also a career choice. And last I checked, we don't become professional readers, or we don't have to become professional writers. So mathing and being a mather came about to provide students and adults the opportunity to continue to use mathematics and keep it as a part of their identity, even if they don't choose to go into a STEM career or do mathematics, in their profession, that they recognize they don't just stop doing math once they take the last math class, which is critical. And when you reject it in first grade, you've got a long road ahead of you to not engage with mathematics. And that's what we're trying to counter when we talk about everyone being a mather and some choosing to become a mathematician. It really is about giving all students the choice. Because if you shut down and reject it altogether, then how will you get into STEM later when you decide it's something you might want to do? I've appreciated this time that I've had with you all. The time is running out, but thank you, thank you, thank you for choosing to share this time with me, the power of a positive mathematical identity.